It's a Pistast here. I'm just wanting to talk a little bit about boy bands. Now, the term is really confusing, and I want to redefine it. Firstly, I wouldn't call these people bands, this group of people, bands at all, because a band kind of implies that there's some kind of musical talent going on. And in this case, it was practically zero. So to actually call them a band is quite incorrect. So I'm thinking more, we'll just go with the term group. You know, they do sort of dance a bit, so you could call them a dancing group, but I think dancing might be a bit sort of, I don't know, too good a term for what they do. So, just group. Okay, group. Second, boy. Now, these guys are only boys when they start, so, I mean, some of them have been doing this for 20 years. They're hardly boys anymore, so boys way out. Now, what is the common factor amongst all these guys and all the groups, all the people in these groups? Well, I'd say the common factor is that they're all pretty much douchebags. People who have this overwhelming sense of self-importance when they've got practically zero talent or anything real to offer. So I want to rechristen these boy bands as douche groups. So from now on, that's what they'll be called, douche groups, because that's what they are, let's be honest here. Now, when you look at a Wikipedia about boy bands or douche groups, it actually reckons it goes back to the 60s, but I'm not gonna go that far back, because they actually include like bands like the Beatles, which is wrong, because the Beatles actually could play and write music, and they weren't boys anyway. So I'm going to start from about 1985 onwards, because that's when the shit really started to hit the fan as far as this was concerned. All the bands that were considered douche groups before 1985 actually had a little bit of talent, so I don't think they qualified for the douche group category. But anyway, we'll start around 1985, and a particular group that really sticks in my craw is Skid Marks on Your Cock. Sorry, New Kids on the Block. Now, Skid Marks on Your Cock were a particular band that got up my nose, because when I was at school, all the guys in my year loved them. I was sitting there listening to Megadeth and AC/DC and all this stuff, and these guys are bopping away to Hangin' Tough. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, okay, Hangin' Tough, AC/DC would fucking rip these guys apart in 2 seconds. I mean, there's no comparison. But anyway, I was sort of a real dork because I like Metallica, and maybe I am, but I don't care. I'd rather like Metallica any day of the week than these stupid douche groups. So, New Kids on the Block, what was it? I mean, they had just a huge douchey factor. The fact is that I don't even know whether they qualify for the boy band title, because half of them were fucking ugly. I mean, it's like, I thought the only qualification to be in a douche group was to actually be good looking, but you've got these guys with noses halfway down their face and they're skinny, they look anorexic, but anyway, I'm not commenting on too much on the looks of guys here, but it was just weird. But most of them, were these guys who thought they were responsible for, the reason why they're all popular. And no, not really. It was just manufactured bullshit. They didn't write their own songs at all. They basically lip-synced everything, and all they could do is jump around on stage like trained monkeys, which really isn't much cause for, the worship that they got. Especially from the guys in my year. I mean, what the fuck were they thinking? Anyway, now, Donnie Wahlberg probably wasn't the biggest douche after all. He got into acting and he made a decent living for himself. And followed in the footsteps of his younger brother Mark Wahlberg, and they actually came out alright. But they had to break away from that sort of thing that they were in. The thing is that they started out douches. Go back and have a look. They were douches when they started. Anyway, as terrible as that is, I think, maybe over the years it got a little bit worse, but there are some groups, not quite as bad. Like, for the next one that was Take That. I mean, they had a little bit of credibility, not because they were British, but because they couldn't get away with such heresy if they were British. I mean, these guys actually wrote some of their songs, or at least one of the guys wrote a lot of their music. But, which is a bonus. But at the end of the day, the douchey factor basically outweighed any talent that these guys have. And you can see that in someone like Robbie Williams, who, let's face it, his only claim to fame was that he looked a little bit like Sean Connery. Now, he pretended to write his stuff after Take That, but he had a lot of help. But the thing about Robbie Williams is he thought he was a legend. He would make statements like this. He'd say, acting. Well, what's so good about acting? You just pretend to be someone else. Well, I'm thinking, well, you fucking pretend to be someone else. You pretend to be a singer, motherfucker. Anyway, he also, in the same interview, went on to praise the Zeitgeist series. I mean, what a douche. Anyway, so the douchey factor definitely outweighs any other factor in the Take That band. Next, we go on to NSYNC. Now, NSYNC, thank God, they were only around for 7 years. And it took them 7 years to work out that the whole thing they were doing was a sham. I mean, Justin Timberlake, by the end of the time he was in NSYNC, was actually writing and producing. And he realised, bloody hell, I don't need all these wankers behind me. I'm just going to go and do it myself. But in the meantime, for that 7 years, they were another douche group who couldn't write for crap, couldn't do anything apart from jump around like, train monkeys again. But, I mean, at least they had the sense to break up when they worked out that it was just disgraceful what they were doing. Now, this brings me on to the Backstreet Boys. Now, the Backdoor Boys, funnily enough, have gone on a recent tour with Skid Marks on Your Cock, which is kind of interesting because when you think about their names. But anyway, Backstreet Boys are probably the douchiest group of all. Now, these guys sold 130 million records. That's a lot. But it just goes to show how many teenage girls are sucked in by this crap. The thing is, that why are they the douchiest of all? Because they thought they were legends. They actually thought they were up there when it came to music just because of their sales. I heard once in an interview, they were asked, what would you like your legacy to be? And now one of the particularly douchey guys in the band with the goatee said, I think we would like our legacy to be like the Eagles. As if it compares to the Eagles. Not only the Eagles wrote their own music, played their own instruments, they also defined a freaking genre. And they had good songs. None of those things are even close to what the Backdoor Boys are doing. I mean, they sold maybe somewhere in the vicinity of the same amount of records, but it just goes to show that there are so many girls out there that will fall for this crap. I mean, these guys did eventually start to write their own music, but it was like I couldn't tell the difference between what was written before and what was written after. It wasn't like it was any better. It was still just rubbish. Anyway, those guys really get my goat. And the thing is that they had this sort of comeback thing, and they just sold nothing because they were no longer like these, cute little boys anymore. They were fucking, like, 35, and all their fans had grown up, and no one gave a shit about them anymore, so they sold nothing. I mean, that's their legacy. Anyway, just to wrap things up, I think I'll talk a bit about the, the new one that's out now. What the hell are they called? One Direction. One Direction. Now, this is just the same old recycled crap, pretty much. I had a look at their stuff. They had 15 producers on their debut album. I mean, it's like, these guys are so talentless that they need all these guys, basically. I don't know what you need 15 producers to do. I mean, what do they do? Wipe their asses half the time? I mean, 15 producers. I don't think there were even 15 songs on the freaking album. Anyway, they're still here, these douche bands, douche groups are still around, and they're going to be around, and they're going to keep being around because there's going to be young girls around who are going to fall in love with this stuff. Now, there's one way to get rid of these bands, and that's to get rid of the young girls. But we don't want to do that. It would be bad for society. So basically, at the end of the day, I think to keep the young girls coming in, you got to put up with the douche groups.